Okay. Um, Once again, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join the webinar today. Um, I am Priya Bisina, and today I'll be walking you through post-graduation visas with more focus on the third level graduate scheme. Some of you might have read about it, or some of you might have heard about it, but today I'll try to just explain it as briefly as possible. Before I start the webinar, just a few housekeeping rules. There would be a Q&A option for you. So if you have any questions relating to this webinar or anything else, please drop them in that Q&A. But I would like to stress that you keep your questions as general as possible. We will not be able to respond to very specific queries about specific situations. So if you have specific queries, my colleague Frank would drop an email in the chat that you can send those questions to. We will take your questions at the end of the webinar. Thanks once again for joining. So before I start, I'm sure some of you might have been on my visa webinar in the past. But just to, I guess, introduce some key terminologies that I will be talking about like through this presentation. First thing to know, obviously, is the visa. The visa is a permission to enter Ireland. If you watched the visa webinar, that walked you through like all the steps and all the documents required to get that visa. So with that visa, it allows you permission to enter into Ireland. But to reside long term in Ireland, you need an IRP card. That is a resident permit card. So typically, within 90 days of arrival in Ireland, you are supposed to register with the immigration services, and then they would issue you a residence permit card. Typically, those residence permit card would be valid for 1 year. So 1 year after you receive it, and you are supposed to renew it every year. So again, as I explained in the previous webinar, like very briefly, typically after your master's program at DCU, you qualify for an extra 2 years to stay back and work in Ireland without the need for an employment permit. And I'll explain a bit about that. But just to explain what an employment permit is, that employment permit is permission to work in Ireland. So once you finish your program and you finish that third level graduate scheme, to remain in Ireland and to work, you would need to receive an employment permit. So this can be applied for by either your employer or yourself in many different situations. So I'll explain a bit of those as we go further. So as I said, like, to stay in Ireland for more than 90 days, you must apply to the Immigration Service Delivery for an IRP. Each IRP type is illustrated by a stamp number. This informs you what you can do and how long you can stay in Ireland. So again, there are many different types of stamps in Ireland. I wouldn't go through all of them. I would just explain some of the ones that I think you would encounter while studying in Ireland. So there's the stamp one, and that stamp one gives you permission to work or operate a business. And to obtain this, you must hold a valid employment permit or a letter from the ISD stating that you can work without an employment permit. So this one is the one that you would get typically after your 1G. The 1G, as I explained, this permission is like it's the third level graduate scheme, and it allows graduates from institutions within Ireland to seek employment. You can also work as well. And typically, this would also be given to spouses or de facto partners of CSEP holders as well, or or for researchers, in the States on hosting agreements as well. So this stamp 1G would be the stamp that you would receive when you finish your program, and you move on to the third level graduate scheme. And then there's the stamp two. So that stamp two is permission to study in full. So again, as I explained at the beginning, after you receive your visa and you enter into Ireland, you would need to register with the immigration and receive a stamp. The first stamp that you would receive would be a stamp two, and that permission allows you to study on a full-time program. You may also be given stamp two if you have permission to study English, higher national diploma degrees, undergraduate, masters, or PhD. And so after you finish your program, and you want to take advantage of the graduate employment program, then you can move on to the stamp 1G. The final stamp that I would talk about would be the stamp 4. And this permission, allows you to stay in Ireland for a specified period of time, and you can take up employment, and you are not required to hold employment permits. So, in a sense, this stamp 4 could be akin to a permanent residence in a sense. So, essentially, after spending a number of years on either stamp 1G, stamp 1, then, say after 3 or 5 years, depending on the type of employment permit you get, and I'll talk a bit more about that in subsequent slides, you can move to this stamp 4. Okay. So those are all the permissions. Again, like you can read more about them on the Irish immigration website, but I think those four that I've highlighted would be the ones that a majority of you would have to deal with. So I've talked a bit about the third level graduate scheme. This program allows legally resident Irish educated non-EEA graduates who hold a level 8 or level 9 award. So level 8 is an honors bachelor's degree, or level 9 is either a master's or a PhD award from a recognized Irish awarding body to remain in Ireland after the studies for a period of 12 to 24 months. So after your undergraduate degree at any Irish university, you can stay back for an extra 12 months. If you did a master's program, you can stay back for 24 months. But again, as I mentioned, you would apply for the residence permit twice. So that residence permit would be valid for 12 months. And so the scheme allows graduates of Irish institutions to seek graduate employment and to apply for either a general or a critical skills employment permit. I'll explain what those are in subsequent slides. So to apply for the graduate employment scheme, you would need written confirmation that you have achieved the awards for which you have been enrolled. So whatever program it is that you are doing, let's say your master's program at DCU, once you have submitted like your final assignments or done your final exams, once the results are ready, you would receive like a notification saying that your results are ready. Once you get that notification, you can request a letter, and with that letter, you can start the process of applying for the graduate employment program. And you must also hold a stamp 2, that is the student, that's the study IRP, and an up-to-date immigration registration card. You must also apply within 6 months of being notified by the relevant awarding body. So again, you have up to 6 months to take advantage of that scheme if you want, and you must present evidence of the final award being attained by way of parchment, or if graduation is yet to take place, an official letter from the institution confirming that the award has been achieved. Okay. So the required documents to apply for that scheme would just be the biometric page of your current passport that is still valid. You would also need medical insurance as well. And this must be valid for 12 months with cover for accidents, including hospital stays. And then a copy of your current IRP, front and back, and then proof that you have successfully completed your degree. So again, either a letter from your university stating that your results are ready, or if you have done your graduation, a copy of your parchment as well. And then you would also need to pay a 300 euro registration fee. So anytime you apply for a residence permit card in Ireland, you would need to pay the sum of 300 euros to get the card. Okay. And so the process to apply would just be to access the ANIS online account. Again, most of you, like once you arrive in Ireland, you would need to create an account and apply for your stamp 2. So it would be the same account that you would use for applying for your stamp 2 that you would use to apply for all the stamps that you would get like while you are in Ireland. And next would now be to upload the required documents. So have a digital copy of all your documents ready. And this can be a digital scan or a photograph of the document. However, the immigration officer must be able to read it clearly. So try to get like a very clear copy of the required documents. This would help to save time in the long run. Okay, and then you need to pay the application fee. So have your credit card ready to pay that 300 euro fee, and then submit your application. So you must have a digital copy of your documents ready, and this can be a digital scan or photograph of the documents. However, the immigration officer must be able to read it clearly as well. Okay. So now looking just a bit beyond that third level graduate scheme. So if you plan to stay in Ireland, like after those 2 years of being on the third level graduate scheme, you can remain in Ireland after the scheme if you are employed. But you must obtain either a general employment permit or a critical skills employment permit. So there are two types of employment permits. The general skills employment permit allows you to work in occupations where there is a labor shortage in Ireland. You can get the permission to work in any of the jobs that is not on the ineligible list of occupations for employment permit. So there are two occupation lists that has been created by the Department of Employment. So for general skills, as long as the job that you are interested in is not listed on that list of ineligible employment, then you can apply for the general employment permit. So either your company or you yourself can apply for it, and you will be able to get more information by clicking on that link. We'll share this presentation with you so you'll be able to go through that. And then on the other hand, the critical skills allows skilled workers who are qualified in professions where there is a shortage of skills in Ireland. So you can get the permits to work in any job that is on the critical skills occupation list. So as long as the job that you are intending to apply for or that you have received an employment for is on that critical skills occupation list, you would be able to get the critical skills employment permit. So there are slight differences between the two permits. For the general skills employment permit. So first of all, like it must not be on that ineligible occupation list. Your employer might also be required to carry out a labor market test as well. Okay. Um, And that means your employer must show that they have tried, to fill the vacancy with an Irish or EA citizen. They do this by advertising the job in Ireland and within the EU for a reasonable period, and they must show proof of this. If they cannot find a suitable candidate for the job, then the employer can recruit a worker that needs an employment permit. But there are some exemptions for that labor market test as well. So it depends on the occupation that you are applying for. Yeah. And then for education requirements, there's no minimum education required to get that employment permit. But the minimum annual pay, I think, is between 32 to 34,000 euros. And the contract must be a minimum of 3 months. So again, like you've applied for the job, they've offered you the job, and that contract must be at least 3 months. And with this employment permit, you can bring dependent family after 12 months. So they must wait after 12 months to arrive. But once they arrive, they are allowed to work as well. And the pathway to immigration with this general skills is, you can get your stamp for after 5 years. So after 5 years of working within Ireland, you can apply for a stamp for, and also after 5 years of being in Ireland, you can start the process to apply for your citizenship as well. The difference between the general skills and the critical skills is that you can apply for the stamp for after 2 years of being on the critical skills. And so that critical skills, it will have like, some more requirements, like you need a relevant degree, I'd say at least a bachelor's or a master's degree will be required, and your contract must be at least 2 years or a permanent contract as well. And your pay must be a minimum of 38,000. So for eligible jobs in 38,000 or more salary range, you must have a degree qualification. But for eligible jobs with an annual salary of 64,000 or over, you do not need to, I guess, have degree as well. Okay. And your dependent family can move to Ireland immediately. So if you receive a critical skills employment permit, your dependent family can come to Ireland immediately. But the IRP card that you'll be applying for would be the stamp one as well. That is the end of the presentation. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. Okay.